Welcome back to the Since I Was Broke podcast. This is your host, Matt Hubble. Joining you today with, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Joe DiCanio. Pleasure being here. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, of course, man. So Joe and I met at the gym, Fitness Factory, a place that I signed up when I first moved to Charlotte. And one thing that I really like about the Fitness Factory is that it doesn't feel cliquish in there. Like it just like it's more mature. Like we were talking about it yesterday. It's nothing against like more of like the late teens, early 20s like gym vibe, but like it can get a little rowdy. Or I feel like Fitness Factory, probably because it's a little more expensive, like it's a little bit more like mature. I feel like it's people that are really into fitness, but it's like people that aren't trolling, I guess, and that are like they're not like zizzing out, so to speak. But anyway, I approached you because I just noticed like over the last, I don't know, moved here in September, the last like 6 months that you're someone I like to see in there. I'm like, this guy's getting dialed. Like you've lost from when I first saw you a lot of weight. And then when I followed you, I was like, oh, you've lost a lot of weight. Like you've been on a journey. So I like just approached you and I was like, hey man, like I think you should love to have you up here. So you're like one of the first guests on here. There's just like a random, just like, I just was like, man, this guy's got to have a cool story. So happy to have you here. And yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about what we were talking about earlier. Like what was the thing for you? Because to give some context, like you said you started at what, 260 at your heaviest?
Yeah, 260 about 2 years ago was the biggest I ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, kind of just woke up one day and was like, yeah, this is not happening. I don't like this lifestyle. And then we just started cutting weight. And like you said, it's been a journey. It's been up and down like anything else. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's been one hell of a ride, and I've enjoyed it ever since. There's good days, bad days, but like we said, it's a journey. So at the end of the day so far, like we're at where I want to be, mm-hmm. and it's only going to keep going. So I started cutting weight 2 years ago, was at 260, my heaviest. Slowly decided let's start doing cutting weight, and then it just kind of kept snowballing into that. And when I started getting down near the 200, mm-hmm. I was like, okay, this is fun. But I needed that extra competitiveness and was like, what's the next step from here? Mm-hmm. Instead of just cutting weight. And that's when I started thinking about bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. First, I thought about it like, it's always fun, like seeing everything and that competitiveness. And I was like, can I do this? Mm-hmm. Then it kind of just kept going, talked to a couple friends. Once I moved to the Fitness Factory, that's when the bodybuilding really took over. And I talked to a couple of guys in there because, like we said, it's not cliquey, and everyone just wants what their goal is, but they're always willing to help everyone else out, mm-hmm. which I loved. And then I talked to the guys about bodybuilding, and they were like, yeah, if you need any help, here you go, let me know. Here's my coach. Reached out to my coach, and since that, the last 2 months has been great. Yeah. Like, went 0 to 100 real quick. Diet has been, instead of, like, cheat meal once, twice a week before, like, even once every couple weeks, no cheat meals. Had my first cheat meal the other day, so it was a big day, like, felt great having that. And now next day after, today we're right back on diet, getting ready for a show coming up in June. Will be my first bodybuilding show ever. Mm-hmm. Super stoked for that, and especially just to see the end goal no matter what happens, win, lose. But we're going to give it the best shot like we've been doing it. Yeah,
that's really all you can do. And it's always exciting because like my journey was like the opposite side, where I was just kind of like a skinny kid and I felt like I couldn't put on muscle. I remember specifically the moment for me where I took lifting really seriously is like I had a crush on this girl in high school. Maybe it must have been high school. But I had a crush on this girl, and we were at like, the neighborhood pool or something like that. And I was just like, I was like in the friend zone probably already. I maybe didn't think I was, but I was probably like in the friend zone. And there was this other guy with them at the pool, and I was with my friends. They just happened to be there, and there's like older guy with them. And this guy just starts like fucking picking on me. Just like, is like, takes a pool chair and like throws it at me in the pool. And it's just like embarrassing as fuck. So I'm like, I remember being at home. I was like crying in the mirror. I was like, it's never going to happen again. I'm going to get a six pack. Like I remember literally staring at myself. I was like staring at, you ever get close to the mirror and you're just like looking at yourself like, fuck yeah, I'm never letting this happen again. And I remember that moment. I was like, and it's funny because like that guy actually, like, I don't think he probably doesn't even remember that he did that. He's probably a really nice guy now that we're like adults. But I'm like, man, this guy has no idea. He's a totally random person. Never talked to him, never hung out with him. Like just someone that grew up in the same area. And I'm like, this guy has probably no idea that like all the shit I've done was hedged upon him throwing this fucking pool chair at me like on some random day where he was probably also just trying to like impress these girls. But it's funny, like those little, like the smallest things that like set us off and like really set that fire where you're just like, it just pushes that first domino. But you had told me that you started with athletics and like you were an athlete your whole life. So were you always like overweight and you're like just the bigger guy, or you like, I know you're talking about college and like you got into drinking and kind of just that culture in college. So like what was that journey that preceded kind of like up to the point where you really got into fitness? Cause it sounds like you were always into sports and like you weren't just like a sedentary person that just like let themselves go, you know. It was kind of probably something different. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Like we said, played sports my whole life, baseball, football, and wasn't overweight, but never like underweight either. It was always that middle, like bulkier kid, like little husky, but like it always used that to my advantage in sports, so it worked out fine. Yeah. And then once I stopped playing and went to college, that's like the school environment we were in. Like we started drinking, partying a lot, and I always was in the gym just maintaining it. But then I noticed like the diet was going bad, like going to shit, and then I was drinking all the time, so that didn't help. And no matter how much I worked out, it just never counterbalanced. And then I would fluctuate in college. I'd get really heavy. Like my freshman year in college, instead of putting on the 15, I put on like 50, and then lost. You're
like, oh shit, I got those numbers backwards.
Yeah, literally, I was like, this is not how it's supposed to work out. And I remember the go-to meal every day in freshman year. I'll remember this. I'll remember it like every day, just because how bad it was. It was a burger, French fries with a side mayo.
Oh.
And I was like, now
you're the mayo guy.
Yeah, I look back at that now, and I'm like, that was such a nasty combo. And I was like, no wonder why I put on that 50 pounds freshman year.
As a side note, I have a funny story about also the dining, because I got a little heavier in my first year of college, and I also hurt my back. So I would think I was telling you, like, that's kind of what set me off too. Is just like I just felt like I was losing this part of myself that I worked so hard for in high school. And it was funny because it wasn't until years later that I was informed of this pivotal mistake I was making at the dining hall. But I went into college with good intentions. I was like, I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to make this work. You know, so my meal was like I would eat yogurt and granola and like a bunch of eggs and like drink like 2 glasses of milk or something. And I was just getting fat as shit. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm just eating yogurt. Like, you know, it's not Greek yogurt, but like it's just yogurt. Well, years later, I remember I was talking about this, like how I was talking about the same story. Like, yeah, and like when I went to my freshman year, this is how I ate. And someone from that school was like, dude, that's not yogurt. I'm like, what? They're like, bro, that's fruit dip. I'm like, this makes a lot of sense why I wasn't losing weight in college now. I was eating like, you know, fucking like a massive bowl of granola and fruit dip every day for like an entire semester.
And it just took you that long to realize until
I didn't ever know. Yeah, someone was like, that's fruit dip, dog. I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense why I was... So there was a disconnect here, but I digress. So you're out of college, you know, you focused on education in terms of your schooling was in learning how to educate and learning how to teach. You got into physical therapy, or you got into like coaching athletics, and what was your journey after college that kind of led you to the point where you were like, this ain't it, Chief?
Absolutely. So went to school for teaching, started teaching as soon as I graduated. Always knew I loved sports, and I was like, let me take that again and use it with the kids and teaching. So I started coaching youth football. Then it went to youth baseball, and that's where I found like my true love, like coaching baseball. And after I moved down here in 2020 with COVID, moved down here, that's when I started gaining weight again because we were going out, having a good time, like exploring the city. First year down here, I feel like a lot of people do that when they move to a new city. And I was coaching, and I woke up one day, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, I'm supposed to be a personal trainer for these kids, and like they'll look up to me, and I was like, 260 doesn't look good as a personal trainer. And I was like, you know what? Time to cut the weight and get even like more serious. And then within that journey, I ended up moving into the high school coaching world. I was coaching high school baseball and doing personal training within that as well, and just progressively was cutting weight, and like the kids started seeing it too, so it was like nice to show them too, like you could do it at any age, and like you just gotta have motivation. Like, and I wasn't like with the bodybuilding diet, it wasn't crazy, it was consistent tracking. Every once in a while, cheat meal here, but nothing too crazy with a cheat meal, like still being able to go out, have food with friends, and just keep it that balance.
Yeah.
So it was all about that balance at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and would you say that like your knowledge of like education, and we were talking a little bit about that, just like building curriculum and like understanding how to teach people, were you able to apply some of that just like fundamental understanding into like how you approached your fitness journey? Because I think a lot of people too, like they go into it and they try to go too hard too fast and they can't adhere to it. So what were some like the strategies that you implemented to like get the ball rolling and to be kind of get past some of the hurdles that we talked about, like those initial milestones mentally that help you kind of then get into the point where you're like committed?
Absolutely. So I set a long-term goal and was like, I want to get down to 200.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not happening overnight. It took about a year to get down 60 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I started off with like, let's start with cardio. We're going to start 10 minutes of cardio. Then as that got easier with Stairmaster, then I was like, let's add an extra 15. Then we just progressed every month and added about 5 to 10 more minutes until I was at like 30 minutes at one point, and it got consistent like 3 days a week during 30 minutes, and then that's when I started noticing the weight drop. Because also when you're that heavy and overweight, the weight tends to drop a lot quicker compared to like now that I'm at that physique getting ready for bodybuilding. If you start seeing more of a plateau.
Yeah.
So like I said before, and just like taking what I knew, that basic information about curriculum, making a program, and like nutrition, because nutrition's the hardest thing with everything. Like I had to get a nutritionist after when I started getting serious about losing weight because of how hard it is, and my boy taught me so much from that I was able to use it and take it to myself and also help out my friends, some potential clients and stuff of that sort. So
Yeah.
just taking it little by little and giving yourself a long-term goal, but then also short-term goals that you could hit your milestones and not just try to like go all out right away. And then you're like, I want to lose 30 pounds. 2 weeks into it, you lose a pound. You're like, oh, this isn't working. I don't want to do this. So that's the biggest thing I've noticed. And just talking to friends too that want to lose weight, it's baby steps until you get the ball starts rolling, and then you can get a little more aggressive with your goals and milestones.
Yeah. What are some of like the unforeseen challenges that came up that you maybe like weren't expecting, or like things that people might not understand that aren't on that like such a dramatic weight loss journey from like being heavier?
More just keeping that same mindset and being strong when you want to go out and hang out, but you don't want to eat out, and everyone else is eating around you, and they're like, yo, this looks good. Like, you want a french fry, you want this and that, and you're just like, no, like I got my food at home. I ate before this. And just staying strong, because a lot of people don't get it unless they're in your shoes. And once they get in your shoes with the journey, they'll understand it more. But for the most part, not everyone's going to understand it and be like, why are you not eating? Why don't you want to drink? Why don't you do this, that? And just staying most close to yourself as you can be, and having that support group aside from you that will help you out and just keep pushing you as well. Because everyone needs a support group, and no matter how good you think you can do it on your own, you need that. Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's made a dramatic difference for me, and just sometimes, especially if you are on your own and then you're going through a change, you're your own worst enemy. So having people around you, like you'll meet Brooks a little bit, but it's like, especially when you're consistent and you have that cadence of working together, like he can discern when I'm having an off day, or like he knows when I'm sandbagging and when I'm just like, being mentally weak. So it's like, I think it's so pivotal. If you're really trying to be like a peak performer, you're really trying to like operate at the highest possible level. It's just, it's something I had to learn, because I had the mentality of like, I could do this all on my own. I don't need anyone. And the truth is like, yeah, you can get to a certain place with that mentality, but it's a little bit ignorant after a while. You have to hit a point where you're like, maybe I could go to this length, but if I really want to go the distance, I need to be patient and like accept this help, And I think that for a lot of people, it's like a self-image, or it's like a mental battle, right? I think a lot of times when we find ourselves in like a situation where we're like, I need to make a change, there can be a lot of like shame and other feelings that come along with it, that is that like negative voice telling us that we can't do something, or like maybe we don't deserve it. And so I was curious, like when you're on that journey of like losing weight, because I felt this like when I was young in bodybuilding, so it was like a completely different side of the coin. But like I felt like I was never deserving to stand on stage. I was like, I've only done this for so short, and I don't have that muscle maturity, and I blah 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 blah. And I was like thinking about it, and I was like, man, I could imagine it'd be really frustrating at times if you're like on that weight loss journey, and it's like you're busting your ass just as hard as other people, but it's just like the physical manifestation is just not as like necessarily gratifying out the gate because you're like chipping away at the sculpture versus like trying to build up necessarily. So like, have you struggled with that at any point, or is that something like that you've ever thought about or faced in kind of like your journey so far?
So it started I got that exact moment when I decided I wanted to go into bodybuilding and switch from just cutting weight and getting in shape to taking it to that next level. Cause I was like, what am I doing this for? Like, what is the point of keep losing weight? And there's no end goal really besides just to look good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to take it to that next level. And that's when I decided to do bodybuilding. And at first, like a lot of people, I mentioned it to a couple people and they were like, bodybuilding, really? You like, no one could see me doing that. And then like my one boy that's been by my side forever, huge gym guy too, like we talk about everything, and he was my biggest supporter with that and was like, yeah, let's rock with it. I was like, I'll be here for you, I'll help you. And I tried doing it on my own for a little bit, like, and I realized like we talked about you need that extra person. So that's when I hit up my coach Thomas Allen, and he's taking me to that next level and really held me accountable. Like those times when I wanted an extra scoop of peanut butter, where I was like, oh, it won't matter, like extra scoop of peanut butter, I've been working hard. That's when he was like, nah, like if you're gonna take that extra scoop, you have your competitors doing something that they're not doing. That like you want to get to that level, you want to be number one and win, you got to look like that, and that takes that sacrifice. And that's what I had to really hear early on to understand. And then you just start noticing week by week, like little things that are popping, little things that are going good. Yes, you'll have your bad days, but it's just keeping that motivation and seeing that end goal and getting ready for the stage and wanting to have that end goal and really just enjoying the process too.
Yeah. I think that is a big. I know for me, it's like, and I think too. I talk about this a lot in previous episodes, whether it's like business or fitness, and I mean maybe that's why I love fitness so much is because it's carried over into other aspects of my self development and all of the areas of my life, but. I feel like once you've done any kind of prep or you've set a date and you're like, I'm going to do this, and then you have a plan and you execute on it, it makes it a little less intimidating. It's like when you start something new, right? Whether or not you're losing weight or you're trying to bulk or whatever, it's like you just don't know where the end post is, right? You're just like, it's like in perpetuity, and that can be really discouraging. So I found that now that I've gone through the cycle a few times of like prepping and kind of like riding those ebbs and flows, like I remember like this prep for me feels so much easier, not only because I have that support team, but also I'm like, when I hit these certain walls, I'm like, I remember this feeling. Like instead of like feeling bad about it and being like, oh my gosh, am I going to be like this forever? It's like, no, I know that I'm going through this channel right now. It's like, you know, I'm passing through this channel into the next like phase. And so it's easier to see it as like, I'm at this part of the cycle versus, oh my gosh, this sucks so bad and it's never going to end, you know, because that can definitely be like more defeating or be like that negative voice that creeps up and kind of prevents us from staying steadfast towards what we're working towards.
And especially like you said, on prep, that's the biggest thing, because like you probably had this too. Like I hit a plateau where for about a week and a half, I wasn't losing weight. I was jumping up and down for a pound, 2 pounds, and like it took a toll on me. And I was just like, is this ever going to stop? Like, am I going to eventually break that threshold that I want to get to that certain weight?
Yeah.
And then you have people just help, like, talking to you, telling you, like, keep grinding, doing your thing. And then you eventually hit it, and you're like, all right, this was all worth it. And then you start seeing pictures of, like, your competitors, and you see your body, how much it transformed. And you're like, I could actually do this now. Like, at first, I was like, I didn't think I could do it. Like, when my coach told me, like, this is what you got to look like, I'm like, bro, you know what I look like now? Like, how am I supposed to do that in 4 months?
Yeah, I also think too, there's something he said about like the things a lot of times I find that we feel are like liabilities about ourselves or like something we're overcoming end up actually becoming like that secret superpower. Like for me, I personally, like we just met, so you probably maybe haven't noticed anything yet, but like I have Tourette's. So like for me, I grew up with like pretty bad Tourette's. Like I remember being in elementary school and being the kid with like, they made me put like folders up and like, you know, try to make it like easier for me. But like I used to just hate that aspect of myself. You know, it was just like it was something I still, even as an adult, have to overcome sometimes. But in the same vein, it's like dealing with that and living through it. Like it, you know, it taught me things about myself and taught me things about how to treat other people that like now that I'm older, I'm like, if I didn't have this like, you know, thing I had to work through, I might not be the person I am today. So I think about it, it's like I always find people have a big weight loss journey, like the legs are always fucking diced at the end of it because like those legs been holding up weight, you know? So it's just like there's always these like small advantages where it's like that half glass full mentality. But what's the like battle that you're overcoming with yourself? You know what I mean? Like, what is it besides just the weight loss and obvious just like the health aspects, like from a mental perspective, like, you know, what has this done for you? You know, like what is like your hope when people see you? Because I mean, I see you at the gym and it's like you have the reason I came in approach was like, you just have like this energy about you where I'm like, I feel like I need to go like say something to this guy. And I was like, I feel like I feel like this guy deserves to like be in here with our team and like do a shoot. And like, you know, I'm just like, if I was on that journey, like I would want someone to like recognize it and be like, yo, let's get it, you know? So like maybe talk to that if there is anything like that, but like, what does it mean for you mentally to kind of have gotten to this point?
First off, exactly what you said, like coming up to me in the gym, like that was huge. And I thought you were just coming up to me, like saying, like congratulating me on the loss, seeing the results. And then once you started mentioning about like the podcast and getting a workout in, like that's like been my end goal eventually to like start getting into that culture and like working out with other people, like recording, seeing how they work out. And when you said that, I was like, let's go. Like this is starting. Like it just was very humbling too. Like I didn't think this was going to be anything like this. I literally just started bodybuilding because I wanted that extra competitiveness. And then seeing people like message me on Instagram that I haven't talked to in a while that are like, I needed this. It was nice seeing this, hearing this from you, like seeing your journey keeps me grinding. And I was like, I've known for myself, like just the grind aspect my whole life with working. And then putting in the gym is a whole different element too, because it's like the gym is all you.
Yeah.
Like it's your diet, your goals in there. So like it's more based on you. You control every outcome of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love the most about the gym and just the journey. Because with everything else in life, you can't really control too much of it. You can just try to control it the best, but at the end of the day, the curveballs will come in. Stuff will happen that you just have to overcome.
Yeah.
But with the gym, it's all you in there. It's you versus you, like that literally you versus you mentality.
I love that you said that because that's something I've literally said on this podcast before. And like I've said this for years throughout. Like this is always the thing where it's like people are like, you already have a lot going on. You're just going to add in a prep. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like I need the pressure of like, I like a lot of things at once. I like feeling like the momentum, right? And so for me, it is, you're 100% right. It's like, there's, you know, we wake up and we might have intentions for the day and then just life comes at us. So it's like, if we're fortunate enough, like there's some people out there that are not fortunate enough to be able to control like what they put in their mouth, what they do with their bodies. But like, if you are, I'm like, these are the two things that I have complete control over. So it just feels like for me to not take advantage of that small bit of control. It's like, if I ever find myself victimizing myself, I'm just being a bitch because like if I'm also not taking control of things I do have control over, then I have no reason to complain about my circumstances. You know, it's just like, and then you find like when you do take control of that, you don't feel that victim mentality. You're like, it feels good to like, you know, I think Andy Frisella talks about this, right? He's like winning the day, right? It's like, for me, it's like getting in here, having a hard workout. It just sets you up. And it's like you win one workout, you're like, I'm ready for the next thing. Like I'm on one, you know, and then a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, you know, you're just like, you become a totally different person. So it's, you know, I totally resonate with that of just taking control of what we can control, you know, because I think it does a lot for us as people to like have that structure. And even when I was training dogs, it's like I saw how much animals just thrive off of structure rather. Because it's so easy to just like get blown around by external things and to like place our emotions in things that we don't have control over. And then that's where I feel like it's easy to feel helpless or feel like we're lost or feel like we don't have control over like where our lives are going.
Absolutely. And like you said, that structure, so many people that I feel like when their life starts spiraling a little bit, because it even happened to me a couple of times, like switching jobs up. Like I went from teaching 2 months ago to switching up careers completely. And like at one point I just felt like everything was spiraling out of control, but it was because I was switching those careers. So I went from teaching that was so structured, every period I knew on the hour, 45 minutes, what we were doing next, to this new career in sales that it's pretty much like these are your hours, but you're going to do what you're doing. You're calling people, talking to people. Yeah, so it's like that was like a whole new thing, and I had to get used to that. But then after like a week, I thought about like the gym. When I started up at bodybuilding, I had to get used to a whole new structure, when to eat, how to eat, when to work out, how intense to work out, when to take days off. And I just applied that same knowledge to life. And that's what the gym has taught me more than anything, just keeping that mentality and structure and going with that. And I think a lot of people that work out have that in life, and that's why they have that stability a lot of the time too. Not saying not everyone doesn't, but it's just that different mindset and work ethic that the gym really does help out everyone, and you can apply it to every aspect of your life too.
Yeah, and that's what's so special about this place. Like, if for everyone in here, and hopefully you feel that when you're in here, it's just like everyone comes here, and it's like we've tried to create this place into like the ultimate performance facility. Like, you come here and you just feel like you want to get better because you're around people that are all trying to get better. So it's just like that energy kind of hopefully pervades and emanates, and like that's what we're trying to cultivate here. So that's why people ask us like, is it like public gyms? Like, it's private, but like we bring people in that add to that. So it's like, that's why it was cool to have you here, and I'm looking forward to this workout we're about to get into. But it's just like, it's just about like curating that environment and like maintaining the integrity of it, because I think like that's what the world needs more of. Like for me, and what I love doing with cameras and audio and videos, it's just like storytelling and like being able to like remotely give people that energy. People that aren't here, like giving them something. So I was gonna ask you, like, I think it's super cool that it's very noble to like be a teacher. I feel like, because it's not lost on anyone that teachers are like vastly underpaid. It's a tough fucking job. I mean, I'm cursing, so kids probably can't listen to this podcast. But like, what is it about like teaching kids that was interesting to you? Because I feel like it's something that a lot of people, I want to say, they feel above it maybe, or they feel like they're like, oh, I don't need to teach kids, or to like work in that environment. Like, people are like, what is it about education that you were drawn to?
Just the aspect of the first thing was just how much patience and communication you learn to get, because not every kid is going to learn the same. Not every kid is going to have the same patience. And you have to just have an understanding for that and go in with that mindset. And you have to, like we talked about earlier, with coaching, training, all of that stuff, and especially teaching, you have to understand not everyone learns the same. Different kids learn different. I learn different. So, and especially with me in school, I struggled a lot because I had ADHD. So that was a huge help for me teaching, because I understood that 90% of kids do have ADHD. Some have more severe, but you have to teach them in a way that they're going to be able to learn it and enjoy it and want to be there. And then also I use my fitness background to not have them sitting all day long. Half the time I'll have my kids stand up on the carpet or sit in the chairs that don't have the back, so they can move around, move their feet while writing, taking notes, watching a video. So that was a huge thing for them too. And a lot of the school systems now are changing that and making PE especially such a big deal for their understanding the mind connection, the mind-muscle connection, and then the learning connection to all that. And it's just a whole different world now from what we used to do as a kid. When we were in school, we used to just sit in a desk all day and not move.
Yeah.
Now they're starting to put in mind breaks, 1 minute breaks, 2 minute breaks to shake it out, dance it out, and then go back into class. And you're noticing the difference in how kids are learning and just enjoying it more.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, because I think about high school. And like when I was in high school, my school was like piloting this like block schedule. So like I remember in high school, I had hour and a half long classes. I'm just like, I couldn't sit here. I couldn't probably even podcast. I mean, maybe I could podcast actively in a conversation with someone for an hour and a half straight. But like sit in a class, I'm like, it's no wonder I started struggling. It's like that's challenging for anyone. So
Absolutely.
Curious, like what are some of the things that you took away from that you've been able to like implement, or like maybe give you this interesting perspective as it relates to like fitness and some of your personal training goals with other people? Like what are some of the takeaways that you've been able to kind of bring with you from your background in being a teacher?
Just the way to talk to everyone too, when people hit me up asking me like what my diet is, how I'm doing this and that, and just explaining it to them, and then also explaining the aspect like everyone's different, so you gotta listen to what I'm saying, like see it, but then also apply it in your way. And my diet won't work the same for anyone else, or it won't work the same for the next person, because my body's different. We're all different, and just going from there and learning that, because everyone thinks there's like a cheat code, like, all right, what's the pill like to take to get like this insane body, like we talked about earlier. Like besides anything, it's the consistency and grit, and then just keeping that up every day and keep learning. Like I've learned so much in this 2 months just from my coach, and I'll text him sometimes and annoy him just asking him questions like, what does the body do if I have a cheat meal after not having a cheat meal for 2 months, and just learning that stuff too. And just continue learning and growing. And that's like teaching. We got to continue learning and growing. The kids are always learning and growing, and that's just in life too. If you're not learning and growing, you're not making strides in life.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, I never taught in school, but I have a lot of younger cousins. I'm an uncle now. So I feel like the thing with with kids that's interesting is like as soon as you think you've figured it out, like you're just like I know nothing. So maybe it's like you know you get humbled very frequently in that environment where it's like maybe you're able to take it out and be like I don't know shit about shit. I'm open to being wrong, which is I think something that can be easy for adults sometimes to like lose touch with is like, you know, what does it mean about me if I'm wrong? Am I a failure, this or that? Whereas like if you're in an environment where failing is okay and it's you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not just okay, but it's encouraged to like fail and fail fast and learn. You know, I think that's like something I wish I would have had more of as a kid that maybe would have made me more ambitious towards certain things or to be okay with like taking more risks. Like I think about even now, I started making music last year and I've always been into music, but I was just scared to sing in front of people. What would people think of me if I was performing and acting and doing this, you know, where it's like, man, I wish I would have just like had someone tell me to do more of that, you know? And so it's interesting. I think it's really cool to think about like how the skills that you've learned in one aspect will like carry over into and be applied to something that you do in the future that you could have never ever anticipated, you know, that the dots would connect that way.
And that's what it's all about, learning to fail. And it's okay to fail, but you got to be able to understand why you failed and learn from it and then succeed after that. Because if you fail and you're just like, all right, I failed, like, I don't know what to do next, that's failing then. Yeah. If you're not taking that next step, learning from it, and then what we were talking about earlier too, just having that open mindset, always wanting to be better and just learning from your mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sick. Well, I think Brooke's going to be here any minute. It was really a pleasure getting to chop it up first. I'm kind of glad we did the podcast first because I feel like it like energized me for the workout. And I'm like, man, it'd be better than if we're like super sweaty, like exhausted. So appreciate you coming out, man. Hopefully we'll get you in here a lot more often. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you continue to do. I'm glad that we could do this and like capture this part of your journey, and then hopefully like you know we can get you back in here when prep's done or when you're on to the next thing, and just keep you in the loop, or keep people in the loop with where you're at with stuff. But where can people find you that might be listening to this that want to kind of keep up with your journey?
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure being on here. Like, this has been such a humbling, mind-opening experience, too. Like, first podcast, hopefully I did good for everyone listening.
Dude, yeah,
like,
you're great.
They loved it. And you can follow me on JoeyFit4_. That's my fitness Instagram. And I'll post this podcast on there, too, so everyone can see. And just at the end of the day, I love everyone for the support and helping me through it, too. That support you guys give me that you don't even think about, that I'm helping you. We're all helping each other at the end of the day. Because we're all here together, the fitness world, life, it's all one big community. If you're not helping the next person out, then you're not really doing your job at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I hope that, like, just how we've become friends is, like, can show other people, like, it just takes going and putting yourself out there and, like, you know, being open to the possibility of, like, unexpected great stuff happening. It's like, who knows what our lives would be like if I didn't just come up and say hi, or if you didn't have the energy that made you seem so approachable. So for people out there, it's like, you just never know, like, you probably had no idea that I just like had noticed you for months working hard to the point where I'm like, I gotta say something, you know? So it's just like, but if you hadn't like just been confident and like doing those drills and just like having that energy, it's like, maybe I wouldn't have felt as inclined to that. So I think it's just a good takeaway for anyone listening is like, just always be yourself. Cause you just never know like who is like seeing what you're doing and is like also inspired by it that you might not know about. So
funny you said that because I thought you were coming to yell at me about stealing your machine or something. I was like, oh, God.
Like,
I was
this
like,
guy's
what
about
I
to
do?
fuck my day up.
Yeah, I was like, what I do? I was just repping through back workout, like getting my lats in, and I was like, oh, did I steal this dude's machine? I'm already 2 sets in. I was like, am I going to yell that over here?
Gave you the reverse Uno crest. Like, actually, you should come on podcast.
Yeah. I was like, okay, perfect. Now I can finish that workout out. Actually ended up being a sick lift after that.
I remember seeing your clip afterwards that you had posted.
I was dumb hyped after that, just from the lift and then talking with you, too. So that energy you gave me for that split second, too, like, made a difference in my lift, and then just being on the podcast and about to get a sick back workout in today too.
Yeah, same back. I'm telling you, I don't know if you ever use that Arsenal T-bar down there, but
no, I saw that and I'm excited.
That's the most humbling machine on planet Earth. If there's another machine that's more humbling than that T-bar row, I would love for us to acquire one here and put it to the test. So hit the DMs. But appreciate you all tuning in. This has been the Since I Was Broke podcast. We're full bore. We've got new team members. We've got a lot of things planned for summer here in the next few months. I'm in the midst of my prep. I'm hitting that first milestone where I think we just crossed the 3-week mark, and it's time to start refining and digging in. And I'm coming to show out. Like I didn't do this for no reason. So people around me, I think, are pretty surprised about how serious I am. Because I told them, I'm like, you guys have never seen this Matt Hubble. Like this guy has not come out since I was like 19. So he's coming out. So anyway, make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe or wherever you're watching this, and we'll be back soon. Peace.